day, listeners, and welcome to the Academic Review right here on Global Campus 101.1 FM. I am your host, Alicia Mohammed. Today's episode focuses on something that many university students can relate to, which is receiving feedback on an assignment and realizing that although your ideas may be good, there is always room for improvement. Our discussion today centers around a student named Kyle, who submitted an assignment that required him to create a formal topic to sentence outline and a 5-paragraph essay. Now let me tell you what Kyle's assigned topic was. Reasons for the shift towards universal secondary education in the Eastern Caribbean. Now, after spending time drafting, revising, and editing his work, Kyle believed that he had created a strong submission. However, after receiving feedback from his examiner, he discovered that his outline needed significant improvement. The examiner explained that Kyle's outline was not fully developed as a formal topic to sentence outline. The examiner also highlighted concerns with the structure and development of his key sentences, stating that improvements were needed to strengthen clarity, coherence, relevance, and alignment. So today on the academic review, we're asking, was the examiner's feedback justified? How could Kyle improve his outline? And what writing approach would best help him develop his essay? To help answer these questions, I'm joined by my co-host Alexandra and 3 specialists who will share their expertise on academic writing and educational communication.
Thank you, Alicia. Listeners, today we have a very interesting discussion ahead. Joining us today we have Dr. Hines, an academic writing development consultant who would help us examine Kyle's original outline and evaluate the examiner's feedback. Also with us we have Ms. Matthews, who is an educational planner and curriculum specialist, who will discuss how Kyle's original outline can be improved and reorganized. And finally we have Dr. Brown, and very special person. He is a specialist in communication and expository writing who will examine the best writing method for Kyle's topic and how his ideas can become a stronger academic paragraph. Alicia, how about we take a look at Kyle's original work?
Alright, welcome Dr. Hines to the academic review. After looking at Kyle's outline and the examiner's comments, our first question is, do you agree with the examiner's concerns, or do you think Kyle's outline was stronger than the feedback suggested?
Thank you for having me. I would say that I agree with the examiner's concerns, but I also think it is important to acknowledge that Kyle had a good foundation. When reviewing his outline, one thing that stood out was that Kyle clearly understood the general direction of the essay. He identified 3 important reasons connected to the shift toward universal secondary education: human rights, social equity, and global pressure. These are relevant points because they provide possible explanations for why education systems expanded access to secondary education. However, the main issue that Kyle's outline was not fully developed into a formal topic to sentence outline. A lot of his supporting points were written as instructions rather than actual ideas. For example, instead of writing, and I quote, supporting evidence of reason, Kyle needed to identify what evidence he planned to discuss. A stronger outline point would explain the actual relationship between the reason and the argument. For example, international recognition of education as a human right encourage governments to increase access to secondary education. That sentence already tells the reader what the paragraph will discuss.
I must say that is a really interesting point. So, would you say that Kyle's problem was not necessarily his choice of ideas, but more of how he would have arranged and developed his ideas?
Exactly. Kyle's ideas were relevant, but an outline is meant to act as a roadmap for the essay. The reader should be able to look at the outline and understand the argument, the supporting points, and how each part connects. Kyle needed stronger links between his thesis statement, body paragraph topics, and supporting sentences.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Hines, for your insight. It seems that Kyle had the right direction, but his outline needed more detail and stronger organization. Now, let's discuss how we could improve that outline.
Joining us now, we have Miss Amy Marie Matthews, who will explain how Kyle's outline could be revised to create a better structure and consistency.
Mrs. Matthews, if Kyle came to you for assistance after receiving this feedback, what changes would you recommend?
The first thing I will tell Kyle is that he does not need to completely change his ideas. His main points were appropriate. What he needs is a clear structure. For example, his thesis statement could be improved to: the shift toward universal secondary education in the Eastern Caribbean was influenced by the need to uphold human rights, promote social equity, and respond to the global educational and economic demands. This thesis immediately tells the reader the 3 areas that will be explored. For the first body paragraph, instead of simply writing human rights, the topic sentence should clearly express the argument. One significant reason for the shift toward universal secondary education was the recognition of education as a fundamental human right. The supporting sentences would then explain how human rights influence educational policies, how governments expanded access, and why this expansion was important. The same approach should be applied to the social equity and global influences. The main improvement is that each section should connect directly back to the thesis statement.
So essentially, the revised outline creates a stronger pathway for the reader.
Exactly. A strong outline should allow someone to see the entire argument before reading the essay. Kyle's original outline showed the topics he wanted to discuss, but the revised version shows how he would actually develop those ideas.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Matthews. Now, one important part of Kyle's assignment was selecting an appropriate expository method. To discuss this, we welcome our final guest.
And joining us is Dr. Brown. Is it Dr. Brown, the medical one? No, not that Dr. Brown, but Dr. Brown, who is the communication specialist and the expository writing specialist. Dr. Brown, let's start with the most important question. Which expository writing best matches Kyle's topic? Process analysis or cause and effect analysis?
Thank you. After examining Kyle's topic, I believe cause and effect analysis is the most appropriate choice. The reason is found directly in the wording of the topic. Kyle is exploring the reasons for the shift towards universal secondary education. When a topic asks about reasons, it is asking the writer to identify causes that contribute to an outcome. In this case, the causes include 1. The recognition of education as a human right, 2. The need to improve social equity, and 3. Global education expectations. The effect is the movement towards universal secondary education in the Eastern Caribbean. A process analysis approach would not fit as well because process analysis explains steps or procedures. It would answer the question. For example, how was universal education implemented? However, Kyle's essay is asking, why did this shift happen? Therefore, cause and effect analysis provides a stronger structure.
Okay, Dr. Brown, I have a question. Moving beyond the outline, the assignment also requires us to discuss paragraph development. Could you explain how Kyle could strengthen one of his body paragraphs?
Certainly. One possible topic sentence from the revised outline is, the recognition of education as a human right contributed significantly to the movement towards universal secondary education in the Eastern Caribbean. Kyle could develop this paragraph using the T strategy. The first T represents the topic sentence, which introduces the main idea. The second E is explanation, where Kyle explains how human rights influence educational expansion. The second E is evidence, where he includes information from reliable sources. The third E is evaluation, where he explains why that evidence supports his argument. And finally, the S is summary, where he connects the paragraph back to the overall essay topic. Using T's would help Kyle create a paragraph that does not simply describe information but analyzes and connects ideas.
Thank you so much, Dr. Brown. Today's discussion shows us that Kyle's assignment was not successful because he lacked idea. Instead, his main challenge was transforming those ideas into proper structure, academic outline. By improving this relationship between his thesis, statement, topic sentence, and supporting details, selecting the appropriate expository method, and developing stronger paragraphs, Kyle would have been able to produce a more effective essay.
Before we conclude today's program, I'd also like to leave our listeners with one final thought. Today's discussion has shown that academic writing is much more than simply answering a question. It is a process that begins long before the first paragraph is written. So careful planning through a well-developed outline allows writers to organize their thoughts, establish clear connections between ideas, and ensure that every paragraph supports the overall argument. We also saw that selecting the correct expository method is just as important as developing the content itself. So choosing a method that matches the question helps the writer present ideas in a logical and meaningful way. So in Kyle's case, cause and effect analysis allowed him to explain why the shift towards universal secondary education occurred, making it the most suitable approach for his essay. Another thing to note is that effective paragraph development. It strengthens an essay by moving beyond simple statements to well-supported arguments. So strategies such as the T's, which Dr. Brown had discussed, encourages writers to explain, support, evaluate, and connect their ideas, resulting in writing that is both coherent and persuasive. So a well-structured outline serves as a guide for the writer and allows the reader to follow the direction of the argument more easily. By taking the time to organize ideas effectively, writers can produce essays that are clearer, more focused, and more impactful. We hope today's discussion has provided valuable insight into the importance of academic planning and effective essay development. You have been listening to the Academic Review on Global Campus 101.1 FM. Remember, strong academic writing begins with a strong planning. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you in the next episode.